So what should I do, Buckaroos? How the heck are you? I apologize for being a couple minutes late. Took me a little bit to get everything lined up. Bear with me, if you will, as I try to get this all figured out here. Yeah, I think we're probably good. Let me get my privacy figured out here. There we go. Anyways, how the heck are you, man? I know it is late. It is almost midnight. I was trying to get this one in on Friday, or at least get it started before I get to Saturday. Yeah, I worked late. I decided to get a couple videos in. Did a couple. We'll do one with two beers. Now we're going to do one with two cocktails. Since I am off tomorrow, I figured, what the hell? Let's go all in tonight. Let's go all in, baby. Anyway, anyways, I don't expect anybody to be with me. I realize it is very, very late, but I did put the stream out there. There we go. Now we're in business. If any of my friends out there would like to be part of the video, hey man, just let me know and I'll shoot you the link. But quite frankly, I don't expect anybody to be up this late. I'm probably talking to myself, but at least I get to get some things out of my system, anyways. As bear with me again as I try to get this fixed. There we go. Anyways, hey, how the heck are you? I did put two cocktails together using one whiskey. It is the Watershed, made in Ohio, uncut, unfiltered, straight bourbon whiskey. And this is the last time I'm going to use this for a little while. I thought I'd make two cocktails with this, and I'm going to tuck her away. It is at 61.1% or 122.2. But the reason I wanted to use this one and not some of the others is the others I have are are dead in different barrels, and I wanted to use just this bourbon, right? This uncut, unfiltered cask bourbon here from Watershed. Creating whiskey means mastering the elements within your control, being your own critic, and accepting that the barrel has the final say despite your efforts. This rare bourbon spends 4 years in our Ohio made Char 5 barrels until it's ready to be bottled without added water or filtration. Each bottle arrives to you as it was in the barrel, untouched, unbothered, uncut, and unfiltered. Again, as I've said this about everything I've bought, is I wish I had bought two of these anyway, mostly because it really is that good. Non-chill filter, bottle 7596. Let me show you that. Ohio made, chart number 5. It is a 4-year-old bourbon. So age seems to matter a lot to whiskey guys, especially if you're a Scotch drinker or an Irish whiskey drinker. But here's the thing: bourbon's kind of an animal unto itself. Um, Longer age doesn't necessarily mean a better whiskey. It really doesn't. And in all honesty, it doesn't necessarily matter with those other whiskeys either, other than that's what we've been taught to believe. So I'm gonna unbutton my shirt. It's not too tight, but it's a little tighter than I'd like it to be at the moment. In this particular moment, since I just ate. And anyway, this is a shirt that my wife actually got for me for New Year's, but it didn't arrive in time. Just get There we go. Didn't arrive in time for me to wear on New Year's Eve as intended, but nevertheless, it did make it at some point, and which is why I decided to go ahead and wear it this evening. So I decided to make for the first cocktail here. I'm having basically a traditional Manhattan, where I've used this bourbon. I've used, I put it here somewhere. Where did I put it, man? There it is. I've used this sweet vermouth, and then I used cherry bitters. The only liberty I took was the cherry bitters because I'm not really a big fan on traditional Angostura. In all honesty, I wanted to always want to take my cocktail in different directions, so I decided to use cherry bitters here. Of course, I'm using a classic dark cherry garnish, but I decided to go with a stemmed cherry because I don't like them. Yeah, I get the presentation. I do. I'm just not about the presentation per se. I'm about the reality of the cocktail. And what I mean by that is your garnish does you absolutely no good on a pretty stick above your glass. Oh, that's nice. So for me, there's just something special about a classic Manhattan. And I know the bitters. Some of you are going to get stuck on the bitters. There are so many great bitters out there, and I want to keep using different bitters, um, kind of depending on what direction I want to take that cocktail. As I look at my bar cart right now, I've got the cherry bitters that I mentioned, but I also have ginger, cranberry, black walnut, rhubarb. A rhubarb I like to use in the summertime with some cherry, or not cherry, but strawberry. I use like a strawberry. I do an old fashioned with a strawberry simple, the rhubarb bitters. Anyways, it's delicious. I've got mint. I've got grapefruit. I got all kinds of bitters. And to just use your traditional aromatic or Angostura just feels a little, unimaginative. Let's just say. It feels a little unimaginative. Anyways, I digress. If you're watching, if you've got any questions or comments, please put it up there. I will answer almost anything. So, my second cocktail, I get a little more adventurous, but I wanted to do one just real close to a classic Manhattan. Because I've noticed when I'm on vacation, I've noticed lounges here in town that a lot of cocktails have gone to these very nouveau style. Or they're adding a whole lot of this, that, and the other that just doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense to me. Well, you got to puree this, then you got to walk around this 3 times, give it an enchantment, and there's just a lot of silly. I know that was a little over the top. I get it, but here's the thing: that what I just said isn't that far off from what a lot of these folks are doing. This puree, that puree, this fruit juice, that fruit juice, this liqueur, that liqueur, and I think they're straying too far away from the magic, which is the Manhattan is a classic cocktail. It's also a classic template for other cocktails, including the old fashioned. Yes, the Manhattan is a template for the old fashioned, and again, and many other classic cocktails. And I just feel like so many nouveau bartenders want to add more ingredients than they really need. It just doesn't make sense. You get too many flavors in there, and then your cocktail gets lost. And that's my thing is that, and maybe that's why I love a whiskey forward or a booze forward cocktail like the Manhattan or even the martini, is that if you're adding other ingredients, you're not adding the ingredients to hide your main ingredient. You're adding the other ingredients to enhance it. In this case, the Watershed Distillery. I'm not adding the sweet vermouth or the cherry bitters to hide the whiskey. I'm adding those particular ingredients as supporting actors to make that whiskey even bigger. And that's the idea is when you're doing a cocktail, you shouldn't be trying to hide your liquor. You shouldn't be trying to hide your main ingredient. Anything you add to that should be with the idea of bringing it forward, to enhancing it, to making it look better. Like a good movie. You've got your actor, but if you got great supporting actors, that actor looks even better, and that's what you're trying to do here. Or that's what you should be trying to do here, is my point. Which I feel like so many folks are trying to make cocktails where you don't taste the liquor. And I get there are some folks that want that cocktail, but if you're going to a cocktail bar, in my opinion, you want a classic cocktail or maybe a riff on it. You should be going to that cocktail bar because you love the taste of the whiskey, not because you're trying to hide it. And here I got that classic Manhattan, which is just freaking brilliant. This whiskey is insane. You would not know that this is a cask whiskey as easy to drink as this particular Manhattan is. The Manhattan. The Manhattan has always been, well, let me walk that back a little bit. I was going to say the Manhattan's always been my classic cocktail of choice, but the truth is, I was probably about 40 before I even ever had one. That's not the upbringing that I had. My upbringing was straight whiskey. It was whiskey and water. It wasn't anything near as fancy as the Manhattan. But the first time I had a Manhattan, I was, oh my lord! Whoever invented this cocktail is a genius. And it took me a long time to warm up to the old fashioned because I would try one out because people was, oh, I love the old fashioned. You got to try it. And every time I'd have one out, I mean, I just couldn't drink it. It was just too sickeningly sweet. I didn't understand the point of why anybody would ever want to drink that sweet. I couldn't make that make sense. Until 2020 hit, we were all inside. I said, okay, I'm going to be my best bartender. So I kept looking at various recipes for an old fashioned until I found what I want to use as a template. And I took that and I just gradually changed the proportions until it worked for me. And what I found was I don't like a sugar cube because there's no amount of muddling that's going to make that palatable. I don't want that grit in my drink. I don't understand those folks that say, I like the drink or "But I don't mind the grit." That doesn't make sense to me at all. I cannot make that logic make sense. There is nothing good about grit. So if you're not going to do grit, what are you going to do, Tom? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it simple, but I'm going to use that same sugar, the Demerara, the Turbinado, any raw sugar you choose, and then make a nice, clean, simple. Don't use, your granulated sugar. Use a good raw sugar. So you've got a nice, clean product. And well, I found a lot of places were doing an ounce and a half to an ounce and a half because it should be a 3 ounce drink. Some 2 to 1. I found my perfect mix was 2.5 ounces of the whiskey to a half ounce simple to whatever bitters I was using at that moment, whatever I was trying to get to. And 2.5 to half is the ratio that worked for me, to be honest. Now I get the fact that that's not going to be as sweet as some folks want it. But I don't like a sweet drink, so I had to. I can enjoy an old fashioned as long as I can make it or have it served exactly my way, which is why I don't typically order it out because again, they make it too frickin' sickeningly sweet. I don't want it sweet, man. You want enough sugar in there. You want enough simple in there. Again, it should be just to enhance your star. Whatever whiskey you're using is the star. You want to bring that up. You don't want to hide it. If you're putting so much sugar in there that you're hiding your star, well, it kind of defeats the purpose. Ah, that's delicious, man. I don't care who you are. That's just good. And again, it comes down to quality of whiskey. For me, I'm using Watershed out of Ohio, and as I look at my bar cart, I've got Watershed, I've got High Bank, I've got Tiaki Da, I've got Neely Family, I've got Four Fingers, I've got a whole lot, I've got Echo, I've got a whole lot of stuff that a lot of folks aren't going to know because whiskey guys tend to get too caught up on the names everybody else knows. Well, you should have this, you should have that. Anytime you're trying to get into something, forget about what these so-called experts are telling you and look to see what you have in your neck of the woods. Because I guarantee you that no matter where you live, you can find those names everybody knows at your liquor store. But I guarantee you probably have at least one, if not more, local distilleries that are doing much better product than those other guys. But whiskey geeks tend to think you have to have certain things in your collection. You should never have a collection. You should have whiskeys that you enjoy. If you're having a collection, you're in it for all of the wrong reasons. Because being a craft beer guy, being a whiskey guy, it shouldn't be about showing people that you have good taste. Shouldn't be about showing people, look at these great bottles I have. It should be about buying the products that you enjoy, that you're going to enjoy. Every bottle that you buy should be with the intention of opening, either with yourself or some friends, and sharing that. But it should never be, if your intention is just, oh, I just want to take some pictures and show everybody how wonderful I am. Well, again, you're in it for all of the wrong reasons. Whiskey is meant for your enjoyment. It doesn't do anybody any good in the bottle. And I've never understood that mentality. I can't make it make sense. Which is why when we were on vacation back in September, we went to Indianapolis first. I bought some products. We got to Ohio. I bought some more products, and I'm still working through a lot of those products. Uh, and that's what being a whiskey lover should be about. Visiting those small distilleries that are off the beaten path, enjoying those products. That's what it's about, man. Watershed is doing some crazy good stuff. I they really are, man. I've got this other bottle here that I'm getting near the end of. Their 4-year-old straight bourbon whiskey finished in apple brandy barrels, but I also have the cask version of that. That's at 6 years old that I haven't popped yet. But the reason I use this one today, again, because well, other than the product really is that good, is just that I didn't want those other flavors, right? I wanted just a great uncut, unfiltered bourbon to make a classic Manhattan. And then the other cocktail coming up shortly, then that'll make sense too once I show you what it is. So bear with me. I've got to jump off camera real quick to grab cocktail number two, but don't go away. I'll be right back. This might take me a minute. I've only got to go to my kitchen, which isn't very far, but, but I've got to kind of balance. I got that cocktail kind of full. So I'll be right back. Okay, again, thank you for bearing with me here. What I was getting at earlier is the Manhattan is a classic cocktail, and it's used as a template to make other cocktails, whether classic or not, or I'm just having some fun. But nevertheless, yeah, you take that idea of you've got a whiskey, you've got something that's going to add some sweetness and maybe some acidity, the bitters. So what I did with this one here is that I also have from Watershed their barrel finished Nicino, which is a black walnut liqueur. So what I did I'm not calling this a Manhattan for obvious reasons, but basically the only thing I changed was, well, I changed the bitters too, but I mean the idea was it's still a whiskey, an additive, and bitters, but I'm using the same whiskey, the Watershed Uncut Unfiltered. I'm using the barrel finished Nicino, and the bitters being, well, what would make sense? Well, black walnut bitters. So I'm using a black walnut liqueur and black walnut bitters, but using the same whiskey. So again, it's not a Manhattan per se, but I'm using the Manhattan as a template to make another cocktail. Be right back. I forgot something here. I realized I forgot to put the garnish in the cocktail. So in this case, the garnish is simple. It's just a cinnamon stick, something to add to it and slowly impart some additional flavor. Now you can use a cherry again because I thought about just doing the cherry, but when I've made this, when I started making this in the fall when we first got home, I really liked the addition of the cinnamon stick in here. Oh damn! I still forgot one thing. Bear with me. Okay, I apologize for abandoning again. My bad. Anyways, it was so I'm starting to relax. Anyways, I do love a classic Manhattan. So typically, when I'm coming up with something else, I'm using that as my template. I will take one thing out, put one thing back in. In this case, I took out the sweet vermouth and I added the nocino, and we're still doing some bitters. So that's really the only difference. Now, I don't know if Watershed has a cocktail like this. Um, and quite frankly, I feel like a lot of today's mixologists, again, are trying to make things more complicated than they need to be, rather than using a classic like the Manhattan as a template and saying, "Okay, let's just do this, see what happens." They're wanting to add several other things and make a more complicated cocktail than it needs to be. I doubt if Watershed is going to do this cocktail ever, but the idea is it just makes sense. He uses perfect whiskey with this black walnut liqueur, and then add the black walnut bitters. You have an amazing cocktail that's just easy to put together. You've got a unique cocktail. You've got your own nocino. You've got your whiskey. You've got a cocktail that's unique to you. But you don't want to do something like that because you want five, six, seven, eight ingredients in a cocktail, and that's why I don't. That's why I don't fit in a lot of places because my attitude is very old school. Make it as simple as possible. Only add other ingredients when you need to. And quite frankly, this whiskey, that Nocino, some black walnut bitters, I've got one amazing cocktail. Ah, man, that's just delicious. Why the cinnamon stick? Well, I started doing that in the fall because I wasn't sure if I had a perfect black walnut half, I would drop it in there. That's just being honest. But I also felt like the addition of the cinnamon stick just very, very slowly imparts flavor. It doesn't give you a whole lot of cinnamon right away, nor do you want it to. But the longer you let that cinnamon stick in there, it's going to very, very slowly impart some flavor. And in addition to the cinnamon, again, anytime you add anything, you need to be adding it for the right reasons. You don't want to take over the cocktail. You want it to lift up the cocktail. And again, I feel like that little bit of cinnamon kind of lifts up our star of the show, which is our whiskey. But our supporting actor here, the Nocino, it also picks that up. And because you want this Nocino up for an award too. you you don't want just your star to get the Oscar. You want your supporting character to get there. And sometimes it's that other character that helps lift them all up. And that's what we got going on here. So why do I have my cocktail served the way I do? The truth is, well, a Manhattan is typically served straight up, although it can be served on the rocks. An old fashioned is typically served on the rocks, although it can be served straight up. In fact, if you look at the earliest recipes for an old fashioned, most are served straight up like a Manhattan is, which is why I have both of my cocktails served straight up because that's how I prefer them. I'm not a big ice guy. It seems like everybody wants ice and everything these days. And I just want my cocktail well chilled, but I don't want any ice left in the drink. Because if you're doing your job, right, if you're filling your cocktail correctly, if you're filling your glass beforehand, your cocktail is going to stay cold all through the process, even if it takes you 20, 25 minutes to drink it. It's still going to remain cold by the last drink. It's not going to be ice cold, but it's still going to remain cold. Again, as long as you've chilled it correctly and chill your glass ahead of time, which is what I've done here. I didn't realize I had some comments up there. My bad. Whiskey Wisdom. Can you post a link for us to join? Oh man, I just noticed you there. Let me see if I can. Barrel Dave says, cheers. Let me post that comment. I'm sorry I didn't notice that earlier. Sometimes I just get talking and it gets away from me. Yeah. Let me see here, guys. Oops. Let me try to get back to you here. Now I can't get back to you, man. Cheers, y'all. It says. I mean, can't see how to add that though. Anyways, I'm just gonna keep talking. I'm just gonna keep talking, man. So yeah, so the idea is that I love the classic cocktail. So I use the Manhattan as a template as I created this one. Again, I'm using the Watershed straight bourbon and their barrel aged Nicino, and I've just added black walnut bitters to create a cocktail. So there you go, launch it. Well, I tried to post it. I'm not sure if that'll let me, anyways, I'm gonna try to focus here and finish up this video. So I started with a classic Manhattan. Then we changed the game up slightly. I used the same whiskey, and I'm going to show it to you one more. The Watershed, uncut and unfiltered. This stuff is just amazing. And again, the reason I use this, I have a couple other products that were aged in different barrels, and I used this one because I just wanted that pure whiskey. Again, the first cocktail was a classic Manhattan. This one I used their barrel aged Chino, which is just insanely good. It is my first experience with the Chino though, and I use black walnut bitters. I am Tom the Whiskey Whisperer, Whiskey Evangelist, prolific whiskey drinker, purveyor of wisdom, and all around good guy. Sláinte. Thanks for tuning in, guys.